We've been talking all of this week about cocaine and whether or not Ireland is in the grip of an epidemic of the white powder. Conor, we'll start with you, and you can tell us your story and how you discovered cocaine and what it did for you, first of all, and then to you.
Look, I first picked up at the age of 17, and unfortunately, in today's society, it's considered as a late starter. I do a bit of voluntary work in treatment centres, and I see lads coming in as young as 13 and 14, and have started using them when they were 12. So, yeah, for me, 17 was young, but I picked up at 17 at a graduation. A friend of mine offered it to me, and I said no at first because I was still playing with Kildare at the time, and I'd one dream, which was to play in Crow Park, and I ended up picking up the second time he asked me, and I always describe it. For me, cocaine, how it felt for me when I first took it was like falling in love with a woman. That's how it felt for me. It was like I dealt with mental health and stuff like that, Pat, when I was younger, and I would have ran from reality a lot. So this was kind of like the little bit of soothing I needed, that
Yeah.
little comfort
But
blanket.
you weren't a fellow without confidence, obviously, if you were playing in Kildare for the county at what was it, under.
Yeah, started at development squads from 12 and all the way up until under 17. So yeah, look, I didn't lack confidence, but I did struggle on the inside. I would have been a man that everyone would have thought was a happy bunny, but inside, I was dying. I was like a little scared little boy, full of fear growing up. And I took it, and it was like that comfort blanket I needed. I'd a load of questions in my life. I went through a bit of stuff when I was younger, struggling, and they always asked why me, and that them
Yeah.
questions kind of turned off when I took cocaine. So it was like this was my new solution, because my solution had always been football, because that was my answer to everything. That's why I tried so hard at it, because it made me feel better. And then I found cocaine. It was like, Jesus, look at this. And I said to myself, I'd only take it on a Friday night, and that was going to be it, because I
Now,
still,
were you in Leaving Cert at this stage?
I was only in fifth year,
Fifth
just
year.
going into sixth year. And I said, that's it, just a Friday night. And for me, I've always been an addictive person. I am an addict through and through. I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic, but I'm an addict and all across the board. So the way I treat things, I do them to the extreme. And I kind of knew it wasn't going to be a good idea, but I rolled with it anyway. So it was a
Yeah.
Friday night, then it was a Friday, Saturday night, and this was going into school now, into sixth year, and leaving cert around the corner. And just to keep it kind of short, it was by the end of the school year, it was my leaving cert, and I was using through my leaving cert. I remember sitting my maths exam. I was only wearing a shirt, two sweat patches after using a lot of cocaine before going in, and as soon as the half an hour finished for when you can sign the sheet and leave, that's what I did.
You were gone.
I was gone straight down to the Super Valley where we all hung out, and I remember just lying there looking up at the sky, thinking, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? But
So even at that point, you were questioning what is happening to you with this stuff.
yeah, yeah, big
By the way,
time.
how did you fund it, or was it dirt cheap?
So at the time, I was in school. I was in sixth year, and it wouldn't have been as big of a thing, cocaine. And obviously, being in school, like, it's not an easy thing to afford. So I won't lie, I got into selling a little bit of drugs, and took advantage of the market, what was there. And you know, I was a drug dealer to other people, but very quickly I became a drug dealer to myself. And school finished, and we went on a holiday, and one thing led to another, and I ended up crossing the line where there was no going back. I started using now every day of the week after I came home from a 6 year holiday, and I was offered an apprenticeship. I never went into it. I went into a cabinet apprenticeship that I only lasted a couple of weeks in, and now I started to use nearly every day of the week, and I was using going to work, and I was still trying to hold my own, and people didn't really know.
Now, what happened to you when you first discovered it? You felt it was where you wanted to be. Um, Clearly, when you're using it every day, just to be kind of halfway normal,
Yes.
you needed it.
Exactly. So this was now my crutch. So this is what I needed now to feel better, because I had found that high that I was looking for at the start. So they call it chasing the dragon, and that's what I did. I ran after it, and yeah. So this was at the age of 18 now, and I was nearly using every day of the week, and I was still in school, and family didn't really know about it. They didn't really have any idea until that year in October. I ended up having my first scare, basically, from drugs. I was rushed into hospital after having an overdose, and this was only at the age of 18, and that was when my family found out that I'd been taking drugs and selling drugs, and I had to admit to it, because
How much criminality was involved? I mean, you were obviously sourcing the stuff if you were going to sell it on.
yeah,
So you're dealing with people who were seriously criminal.
yeah, of course, I was dealing with people. I was dealing with people who were obviously selling a lot more drugs than I was. And at the time, I was only 17, 18, and I was selling a couple of €1,000 worth of drugs. We're talking, five figures. So it wasn't normal stuff I was dealing with. And I say that openly and honestly, because obviously I'm proud of my story, and that's what I got involved with. And after that overdose, and I was in hospital, I woke up and my mum and my sister were at the end of the bed, and I promised them I would never use again, and I believed I'd never use again. But if you're an addict of my choice, if addict of my type, you don't get that choice. I didn't have that choice, and I got out of hospital that day, and a week later was Halloween. It was back out using, and that's when things just got worse for me, Pat. Now going to work became an issue. I couldn't go to work anymore. I couldn't hold down a job, and what was the partying and going out with the lads and all at the start, that all this good stuff that you think and you see on social media and people partying and all and taking drugs, it was like I was sitting in my bedroom on my own, going toilet in a bottle and pouring it out the window, using hundreds and thousands of euros worth of drugs every day, and still not getting the same high I was getting. And there was only so much I could keep doing. I ended up owing €20,000 when I first got out of hospital that time. And bank loans, credit union loans, family loans, people who were really good to me and trusted me that I wouldn't use again. But I was a manipulative drug addict, and I would have done anything for my fix, and I did that.
And did your family actually interface at all with the criminal people to whom you owed money?
No, so I got the money, and I met face to face with these people, and that was one thing about me, and that's why I fortunately was enough to never get harmed physically, because even though I owed the money, I always went face to face with the people I owed it to and said, look, this is the situation. And I was lucky enough that I was never harmed. And that's not the story of other people, because I've seen it in other cases where people and people's houses and stuff have been seriously harmed by this type of stuff. But yeah, that was how it went. I owed €20,000. I managed to clear that debt, and 2019, the first couple of months were just a disaster. Using every day and in and out of jobs, couldn't hold down a job until enough became enough. I couldn't juggle this life anymore. You're trying to juggle family, you're trying to juggle drugs, you're trying to get your fix, and being an addict's a hard job.
Yeah. People associate this kind of behavior with heroin.
Yeah,
They think cocaine, the party drug, fairly harmless, a bit like having a few pints. What do you say to people who think like that?
yeah. If you think about it, think again. Where my story finished was on Mother's Day 2019. I sat by the edge of the River Liffey and tried to drown myself, until fortunately enough someone came along and pulled me by the side of the water and saved my life. That's where my drug addiction ended up, and that's where it finished. And I was lucky enough now, and I got brought into Nice Hospital, and got some help. A very lovely woman came in and had a chat with me, and she asked me would I want to get help, and I said I'll do anything. I couldn't do it anymore, and I got into a treatment centre on the 17th of July 2019, and haven't had to use a drink or a drug since. So if you think about what I said at the start, was just this Friday night with the lads, it's gonna be all right. And then at the age of 19, not playing football anymore, not going to the gym, no job, just the clothes on me back, trying to drown myself. That's where my story ended
You
up.
talk to young people now. I mean, people, I presume, still in school like yourself when you started. What's their reaction when they hear your story?
Yeah, so I do a lot of talks in GAA clubs. So I actually partner with Downgardy Síochána, and we do a thing called the HEAL Project. And I won't get much into it, but we go around to GAA clubs and we carry the message, because GAA is the main focus for me at the moment, because I work full time, so schools are kind of hard at the moment. But when they hear this, there's been many text messages to me on social media saying, thank you for your story. I didn't think that, it was like that. And, you've made a decision now that I don't want to take drugs and I want to keep going with my career. And a lot of these would be aspiring to be young Kenny
Sure.
Hurlett, and that's the thing we're trying to get across. And it's not about saving everyone, Pat, because that's not possible. But what it is doing is carrying the message one person at a time. And if we could get one person per talk, it's a big thing.
And it's no respecter of class or circumstance.
Absolutely not. Like it's, from doctors to lawyers to middle class to lower class, you name it. There's one in it's the newest statistic is there's one in every 10 people using. So between guards, lawyers, doctors, you name it, there's everyone's using. Everyone. There's people from all walks of life doing it. Why they do it, I don't know. It is a stimulant. It does make you feel better. It does do things for you that sometimes, people think life can't do for you. But I found the solution now, and I know that there's nothing that drugs can do to make my life better, because I found it in life itself.
A number of
Education.
people asking how do they get in touch with you, Connor, if you're speaking to clubs. I'm a GA coach, says one. I would like him to give a talk in our club.
Yeah, they can get me on my email. Which what can I say?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Connor9920 at iCloud.com, or you can find me on Instagram as well. Can I just say, Pat, before, I don't really want to go off this topic, but I just completely get my point across. But, you talk about festivals and doing that festivals, but every kid in the country goes through school. Every single kid in the country. So it needs to be nailed. First to third year, we need a drug awareness workshop, and it has to be mandatory for all kids to go. It's not about saving every kid who goes to school, Pat. If we can
Yeah.
get one person per class, that's a massive. And that's, for me, in my opinion, was what we're lacking is education in junior cycling schools, is a mandatory workshop for these people to get. If they're going to have to get a mandatory sex education, if they're going to have to get mandatory education around all the subjects they do so they can go on in their further life, they need important stuff like this, because that's where health comes in.